Okay, so we're ready to get started. So a little bit of background: who is ardentCause and why DataSnapz? I'm going to tell you that before I show you the demo of DataSnapz. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on who we are, and I'm going to just kind of briefly go over some of the overview of what DataSnapz is, and then I'll show you how to get started. This whole thing we should be done in hopefully less than 20 minutes. We lost a little bit of time in the beginning, so I want to make sure everyone can see the whole thing in the time period. So if I go a little bit too fast, just, you miss anything, just know that that recording is coming, and also that if you have any questions, I will stop after every section, specifically in the demo period. When I'm showing you the system, I will stop after main points, and if you have any questions, you can use the chat bubble just above where you can see the visual. There's a little chat bubble. You click that and you put in any questions you have. I will be checking that periodically. So if I go too fast, again, feel free to ask any questions. So who is ardentCause? We are a tech company, and we're dedicated to serving small businesses and nonprofits to bring data and technology, and make it more accessible and make it more useful to make the lives and organizations that currently exist better and easier. So we were founded about 8 years ago, maybe closer to 9 years ago now, and we've had a whole slew of online software development platforms, and they all kind of led to data and making data management better and providing business intelligence. And then so DataSnapz specifically is a tool that's just about tracking data. We're able to track data and make it more accessible for people out in the field or doing operational work at an organization that actually has data that they need to track to track their underlying products or services that they might provide. So the benefits of DataSnapz, I have 5 things. I mean, there's so many benefits of DataSnapz, it's hard to narrow it down to 5. But the most important thing to understand is that we basically are a team. DataSnapz is a web-based platform, but what you get is a team that will help you set up the system for you. We do that professional setup along with the current data that you're tracking now. So what we do is we set up a 1 hour, once you're ready to get started, we set up a 1 hour information session where we learn a little more about your organization. We collect what you're tracking now and any reports that go out. And if you have already developed forms or spreadsheets that you're tracking data in now, that all helps with the setup process. We take that information and we put it into DataSnapz. It's going to make more sense when I actually show you a live account. And all that was created just from a spreadsheet and some conversations. And we set that up for them, and now all their staff are able to use DataSnapz and track it the same way and keep their data clean. You get a dashboard. You get a few dashboards depending on what your needs are. And I'll show you that. Like when you log in, everyone will see that dashboard. It's a good way to make sure everyone is on track in a particular department or set of reports that are going to go out. It's good to see those on the dashboard. I'll talk a little more about that when we get into it. There's a report builder, so we do put in reports based on any board reports or funding reports that typically go out on a periodic basis, but there's also an ability for anyone who has access to DataSnapz, any one of your staff, they can make their own reports. It's a very easy to use report builder, and then you can save those reports, and we're going to show you that today. And we built DataSnapz around the fact that we wanted to make sure organizations had the ability to access their data from anywhere at any time, and to make sure it is clean. So those are kind of underlying core elements that you'll see as we go through. And of course, the last bullet on here is to have all kinds of different data being tracked all in the same place. So you can have different departments, different initiatives, different services and programs. They'll all be in DataSnapz, and you can kind of see at a glance where we're at. by just going to one logging in and just looking at the dashboard, for instance. So you kind of, hopefully all those things will make more sense as we go through the demo. So I'm going to switch over to the demo now. So here is an account. Full screen this. Here's an account. This is a demo of an account that we recently just set up, actually. And the way this worked, again, is that we were provided, and we received a call from this organization, and we provided a handful of forms and reports. And they said, well, we know we have a lot of data, and we're not really tracking it well, because once we want to go back and try and find what we did with a particular case, we have no idea where to look. We just have boxes and boxes of data. We hear this everywhere. So that's what's good about our professional setup. We give you a checklist, and you go through the checklist to provide us with all the necessary pieces of information that we need to set up your account for the first time. And then we're always there. We're always there to maintain it in case you want to add things, remove things later. So when your staff first logs into DataSnapz, it will always look like this. You get taken to a dashboard. Now, your dashboard for your organization will look different than this. This is an example of an account that we have already set up, and we personalize it to them. So that's always the one thing that it's a little bit of a learning curve during the demo. This is a different account, so you have to imagine your data and how it would fit in these placeholders that I'm going to show you. So just an overview of what you're looking at here. On the top right side, it shows me my profile, and I can kind of go into the administrative. I can go into my organization and add more users or manage it that way. But mostly, typically, you're going to be focused on the left sidebar. So there's 4 elements to point out: the dashboards. Next down are the add data. Those are the data input forms. We'll go through a couple of these. There is lookup and edit. So this is kind of where your workflow comes into play. If you have a certain process that you follow for following up on certain cases, or you have certain products that you're maintaining, and there's always, you have to follow a certain process, that goes up, and that will go into the lookup and edit. Usually it starts with looking up something and then going there from there, and then the reports. So all reports that have been made by your staff or by us for your staff to use will all be in the reports. So starting with the dashboard, you get we have a whole slew of different options that you can have for your dashboard. This is just an example of one, and here's another dashboard that is a bunch of pie charts. We call this the bunch of pie charts dashboard. But let me go back to the overview dashboard. You can see that there's a few different options for viewing your data. Like this first one is a line chart, and it can seamlessly be changed to a bar chart if it makes more sense in certain cases. And they didn't want 2 separate charts because it's the same view of data. And this one particularly, if it's it's an easy way to pick a date range and hone in on a date range, and then you can always reset that chart. So at any point, you can also click the data view, and it gives you a little form of what data built that chart. And if you want to visualize a change in the data, it's really easy to do from here. I can just change it right in the data view. It doesn't actually change my data, but it makes it so I can redraw my chart a different way. And if you notice, it redrew that chart. I can take a screenshot of this or download it, put it into a PDF, an email with this button here, and you can always reset that chart back to what it was. So a lot of those options are available. You don't have to use those. We asked you some questions when we're doing the dashboard discussion to define what we want to set up. And there's a lot of different options, and we'll show you, this is just an idea of some of the things that you can get. Before I move on to the next section, is there any questions on the dashboard? I asked that because I know there's already a question there. It says, do we need to set up our own dashboard? So no, we do the setup of the dashboards and the charts for you. during the, we have a dashboard discussion when you're ready to get started. I'll show you how to get started at the end of the demo. But then what we do is we take you through a set of steps to set up your whole account. And one of those is a dashboard discussion where we talk about your metrics, the things that typically you want to see on a daily basis, on a quarterly basis, an annual basis, and those, hybrid of those things become your dashboard. So, and we set that all up for you based on your definitions and your metrics. We can also help you define those if you need to. I have a couple more questions. How do you add charts? So the charts, again, there's no way for the user to add charts to the dashboard. We are hoping to have that feature soon, but currently we have had no one that actually wants that feature because of the alternative that we provide. So what we provide is a seamless way to, it's like you're going to have an IT department when you work with us. You contact us and you say, I need a dashboard that does this. We ask you the basic questions. We're all, we have a team of professionals they just do data every day. So they know the exact right questions to ask you, and you can answer those yes/no questions, and then you will have your new chart in a matter of days. There is a cost associated with that, and we talk to you about all those costs up front, and those are like ad hoc requests, so you don't pay for those until you actually need them. And then we have another question. What if we want more charts later? So I think I just probably answered that. So I didn't even see that question, but I think I answered that one. So I'm just going to move on to the add data. So these are the data input forms. They go under all the data that goes into power your dashboard and your reports. Start here at on the add data. So I'm going to start with the activity form. It's probably the most easiest to comprehend form. So there's the forms, we try and keep them as organized and as easy to digest as possible. Meaning that we don't show you all the questions about your form or all the questions about that particular case all at once. We have forms that have over 500 questions, and we break them down into sections and categories, and we also pick and choose questions based on how you answered other questions. And most of that stuff is very easy for us to define how that works without any involvement from your staff. Like there's questions that say, I think you'll see some as we go through. So you'll answer yes to a question, and it'll prompt the correct follow-up question without you having. So it makes it a lot easier to do the data input. Also, we have constraints on everything. So let me kind of go through this. You'll see that. First step is to add a client. So I do a search. I know there's not a lot of clients here, but I can type in a name if I wanted to. Notice how the list of tables, there's something here that says driver. If I just typed in driver, it kind of narrows that down. So once I select my client, I can move on to the next section. And notice how it just opened up my next section, and then this is like the caregiver. So for this particular client, they were tracking data on clients, and they always had a caregiver associated with their client. So they needed to know what caregiver was providing this information, and that caregiver was separate from the data entry person. So whereas the person using DataSnapz is the data entry person, the person working with the client is their caregiver. So, and I would do a search and then pick a caregiver just like I picked a client and move on. So that would allow me to actually look up this data by clients or caregivers. So we'll show that later. And then the activity date is the first field, and you'll notice it tells me what format. And if I try and type in letters, I'm typing other stuff. You can't type in anything that doesn't follow that format. So it keeps bad data out, keeps that garbage data out. And you can also have additional constraints, like if all your clients are over 18 or all the dates are in the future, then we can add constraints like that too. So this activity was a long time ago apparently. And the activity type, drop down, I think you get the point here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a duration. Let's say this was a 4-hour coaching session, and I'm going to submit that. And then if I go to my passport self-sufficiency dashboard, which shows the activities by duration, you would see the coaching session. I didn't point that out earlier, but it would have increased by that time in the past 30 days. That's what that chart is. So the dashboards are all real time. Let me give you an example of one of the more complicated forms. And this is one of those forms that has hundreds of fields, and you can see from all the sections. So I'm just going to jump down to one of the sections. It only asks you one question at a time here because we're able to hide and show the flow based on your answer to the question. So green, you're done with this section, move on. That's basically what that means. If I selected no to that question, it is going to present my next question and the logic, how the logic flows there. Based on my answers, it's where it tells me like when to start, when to stop. So that made this is an assessment that they did on clients. This made this assessment process a whole lot easier. I know there's a few questions, I'll get to those in a second, but they had this process that took over an hour to provide an assessment, and after we provided them this, we had another interview with them, or we just asked them some questions of how has this impacted, has it helped, and they said, and it used to take them over an hour to do assessments on clients, now it takes them 20 minutes at the most to do assessments on clients, because you don't always have to answer all the questions. And if you notice the green checks, there's a couple things I want to point out. The system is automatically saving my progress. So this is a big form. So if I left this form and came back later, it's going to pick up where I left off. If I got signed out or I lost internet connection, it's just as if you were working you're working offline. It saves all that information until you log back in, and then you can pick up where you left off. So I can show you that I could log out, but I instead am going to just refresh the page. I just hit F5 to refresh my page, and it tells me at the top that I have a draft that I created on this date, and it's going to pick me up where I left off, and I can see that it does the same way I answered those questions before. Okay, so I think you get the point of adding data. Forms aren't always the funnest. So there's a couple more questions I want to address. Will you help us with what to track? Right, so the forms are built off of what you are currently tracking. If you have a client form, for instance, I'm going to give you an example, hopefully that'll answer your question. If you give us a client form, you say, we don't really know what to track on people, we just know that we need to keep track of people, we can provide you with kind of our standard forms or a standard questions that you would ask in that particular case, and then you can kind of check, it's like a checklist. You pick, I want to add race, and I want to add the children, and I want to add household income and stuff like that to the client form and alternate contact information, and then you just built your client form even if you don't have one. So yes, we do help with that, and we have a lot of different ways to make it a lot easier. A couple other questions. Can we build our own forms without support? The answer is not yet. That's another thing that we hope to add in the next year. In 2018, we have a whole slew of things that we want to include. It's something that we thought was a higher priority, and then none of our actual audience was asking for it. We are in agile development. ardentCause does everything very, very responsive to what the customers want. So if this is something that seems like our customers want it more, our audience wants that, we will prioritize that. But right now you cannot do it. We do have designs and hopes to add that soon. Can date fields have a date picker with a min or max value? I think you're probably, yes, they can. They can. I think you're talking about, that's two things. You could either have that on the dashboard. You could have a date. We have dashboards that have date pickers on there where you can pick the begin and end range, and then you can have a date picker on your form that shows a calendar pop up, and you pick a day on the calendar, and that picks a date. So you don't have to type in dates. We can do either or. Sometimes people don't like the date pickers, and they prefer to force their staff to type it in. I don't really know why. Can you drill down into the charts? Yes. Unfortunately, I don't have an example of a drill down chart, but we just set up an account for one of our clients that all their charts had drill down. They had really cool drill downs. I should add them to the demo. But basically, they had categories, and they had all their data based on categories, and there was percents. And if you clicked on any category, and it would drill into that category and show you all the data that made up that percent. And it was, and then they could back out and go into a different category. For all their charts, they had that. There was ones that pulled up client data, showed you directly what clients. So yeah, we can definitely do that. We'll show you examples when you're thinking about what charts you want. Is there a RESTful API for the data? That is a good question. So we do have an API that we use to integrate with other services. So if you have your data in things like QuickBooks or other standard like national services, we already have some integration that makes that data, so you don't have to do data input again. That data will automatically be here. We can create dashboards for you, and you just update your data in QuickBooks for that example, and they're updated here. But the other way around, to allow our users to integrate with their own data, we don't have any public interface to be for you to access the data. However, we are all about making data more accessible. I would love to actually talk to you more about what your thoughts are on that. Data accessibility wise, I'll show you ways that allow you very easy to download your data, all of your data in the system at any time without any support or really training. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next section. All good questions, keep them coming. I'm a little bit behind on time, so I'm going to try and rush through. So look up and edit. Just based on the same. Let me close this. I showed you the form for activities, and I showed you that you could add an activity by client or by caregiver, or you track both clients and caregivers on the activities. So then you can look up all activities based on what client was assigned to them or caregiver just through the workflow here. So I'm going to do client, and that's going to show you a form where you need to search for your client. I'm not going to do the search, and it just shows you a list of all clients. If I wanted to, I could still do a search here. It works it's like a live search, and it searches across. So if I typed in driver in the search box over here, this is like an omni search. It searches across all data fields. So for the forms or for the tables that you track lots of different columns and you don't really know, there's a particular piece of information on someone's record. You don't know what their name is, but you don't know what that piece of information is. It could be a notes, somewhere, and you could just type it in the search. It narrows it down to any record anywhere across that record that matches that criteria. So I could type in a better example. There's not a lot of data here, so let me go into the activities for Michelle, and maybe we'll have a better one. So now this is showing me all the activities that were ever submitted for Michelle, and you can see the caregiver's information here. I can edit that activity, but it's kind of an at a glance of what's going on. So if I go to goals, I kind of want to show you one more version of this. I want to see I did that really fast, but I went and clicked all of Rebecca Rogers' goals, and you can see that there's 2 goals in here for Rebecca. Maybe that wasn't the greatest example to go with. I'm going to pick driver again, Michelle Driver goals, and you can see there's 3 goals. I can see which ones were completed. This one's completed. These ones have not been completed. There was no date set for date completion. So I know that she's still working on her financial goals and her caregiver and employment goals. So I can just click edit to update the status of those goals. And if you have clients where they have tons of activities here, records here, you can use the advanced search to search across all of them. It makes that a whole lot easier. So any questions there? That you would use this feature when you are updating progress, or if you're editing a record. So if you're selling insurance, for instance, and the insurance has moved from a different status, it was pending review, and now it's actually issued. You can go and look up that client, find what policy they have, and this is another way to do that and update that information. And it always tracks who's recently updated it. So last modified by me, last modified date. I can click on column visibility to show more fields by default. I can add more fields here. So I added who created those records. So you can see that I created some of these, and Nancy created a different one. And then at any point you can download what you're looking at. So if I click CSV, that CSV is going to show you those fields. And that's just a comma delimited file or Excel. It shows you just in a spreadsheet of what you have. So that's the lookup and edit. And that same theme goes for reports. I'll show you that again. I'm just going to head over. Oh, we have another question. Does editing open the form, or is it inline? We can do both. We haven't had anyone that has wanted the inline feature, but we do have the inline editing feature. It's very cool. You can just click. I mean, it looks exactly the same. This account does not have it. Again, this is a demo of a real account that we recently made. But that's a question that it's based on if your staff, if you want to entrust your staff, or if you're okay having different permissions, where the admins would have inline editing and the regular staff do not. So what the inline editing does is I can just click this, and then it'll show me a little field that I can edit the value. And when I click OK, it shows me a little spinning bar and updates it. And you can tab through it just like you would a spreadsheet. The inline editing is a very cool feature and a quick way to edit bulk amounts of data. But it makes it easier for someone who is not trained or doesn't know what they're doing to potentially make mistakes. So there is that caution. We always suggest that you do the proper training if you have the inline editing feature. Looks like that's it for the questions on the lookup and edit. So I'm going to move on to the reports. This is the last section. When I open the reports tab, this is a dynamic list of all the reports that are available and that have been created by your staff. So the first option is all reports, and then the last option is I can create a new report. So for every report you get, it fills in the rest. So this one here is a report that was created by a staff member. So I'm going to click all reports. It's going to take me to a page that shows kind of a breakdown of all the reports that are available and a description, who created them. I can edit this report if I want to change some of the settings or filters, or I can just click through to view the report. So I'm going to click through to view one of those reports, and it's just a tabular view, very similar to the others, and it's based on the very specific settings that user set when they were creating the report. And you can download this data here. So this is a good way to make like an all data report, or a report very specific to maybe it's the clients that you need to call or the prospects you need to follow up on. You can download it in Excel and go through it in Excel and follow up on them, or just do it right from this view. You can't edit any data here, but it's a way to view your data in different ways. I'm going to show you how easy it is to add a new report. I'm going to click Create New. It's a three-step process to add reports. Any reports that have, did I not do that right? Any reports that have, I'm sorry, let me go to Create New Report. sometimes I talk and I don't push the right button. So any reports that have very advanced or complicated metrics in them, or very calculated fields that involve a lot of different complex queries to calculate them, we can set all those up for you. There are some things that make it very easy to set up your own reports. All depends on the question that you're asking. So I'm going to go to that assessments table, and actually let me go to the clients table. So the first step is to choose your table, and based on what table you select, there's other related information that you can also add. So I did the client profile and also the assessments. So this one, those are the two tables that I want to pull report data on. And it's automatically going to join those tables together. You're basically creating a database query without having to do any code. So it's going to pull all the data back from both those tables. And then step 2 is to choose the fields that I want. So it's going to show me a list of all the fields across both of those tables. So I select what I want. So if I want the client ID, and then let's say I want the client's last name, their zip code, and that's all I want for client information. And I'm just scrolling through here because I know what I want to build. And I want to add the rating type and the assessment date. So if you notice on the bottom, it's showing me a preview of the report that I'm creating and the actual data in the table to make sure my report makes sense. And on the right side, step 3, it's showing me the list of the fields that I've selected. So if I'm done with choosing my fields, step 3 is I can rename my fields and add my filters. So let's say it's going to show you the default system database name for the fields. So you might not want it to be, you might not want your report to have that as the column name. So you can come in here and change it to, whatever you want. This is especially important if you add filters and you want to kind of explain what that filter is. You can do that by renaming it in a correct way. So, like for instance, if we're here in Michigan, so big city near us is Detroit. If I wanted to run a report that's only Detroit zip codes, I could make that very obvious and say Detroit zip codes, and then I can do a filter, add a filter here, and pick a range of zip codes and pick all those particular zip codes. So give you a better. Let me go to the date. I'm going to do a date. It's more obvious. And I can pick a filter that says any date that equals, that would be any date on that matches exactly. I could pick any date that is greater than. So if I want to know any information that's for a particular time, you can do any number of these. You can do any combination of filters to create your report. So then when you're done with that, it's going to show you the preview. Let me just change this one to rating type. And if I do a rating type equals, if I only want to see the intakes, then it's only going to show me, it's going to filter all that data by only showing me the intakes. So when I go to save that report, it lets me name this. So this was client, spell it right, intakes, client intakes. And I can put a full description if I want. When I save the report, what that's going to do, it's going to take me back to the all reports, and it shows me the reports. So any one of the staff members that are logged in or that log in the future, I can say, hey, by the way, I made a client intakes report. You should go look at it. And then they can come in here and they can see this. They can see this exact report, and they can click view, and that's going to take them to show that the exact report the way it was. The preview, I just want to point out, the preview on the other page is only showing me the first 10 records, whereas when I click this view, it's showing me all the records that would be in the table. So in this case, it's apparently only 6. So the preview showed all of them. But this would show pages and pages for all the different records. You'd have thousands of records here, and it would show you the pages. You can filter them beyond what you had set up in the specs for when you're building the report. You can do additional filters here to search for something, and then you can also download it. So we have a couple questions I want to address. Okay, can other staff members see? Yeah, there's a question that says, can other staff members see the reports that I created? And yes, they can. You can see reports across. Any staff member for your account can create any number of reports, and everyone has access to seeing all those reports. If you go to the one thing that's, let me go back to the all reports page. The one thing that question that's come up before, that if you go to edit someone else's report and then you save it, it actually won't change that person's report. It will create a copy of that person's report with your name on it. So then you can essentially clone reports very easily that way, and then that person, when they log in, they can still see the reports that they created the way they created them. There's a couple other good questions here. I want to make sure I cover them all. Are all forms, I may have missed this one earlier, are all forms ad hoc by your company, or can I build my own? Yes, forms are, the data entry forms are all based on your data at your company. So we work with you during the professional setup stages to get an understanding of all the data that you track. It doesn't have to be anything that we're familiar with at all. We know data, so we know how data relates, and we know databases, so we will make sure it's set up correctly, but it all comes from you. And we can help if you have questions on, if it makes sense to track something in a certain place, or if you want suggestions on tracking more things. We've helped people develop their system for the first time, like people who just began to realize how important it is for them to track data. Then we can help set that up, or you might already have a whole set of processes that you use now, and we'll set it up just like that. I think I missed that question from earlier. Can reports include charts and data tables, and can they be exported to PDF? That is a good question. So we've had a lot of back and forth with the PDF. So the charts, yes, we can definitely do. We have reports that those are custom, or those are personalized reports that we build for you. We can have reports that have a whole list of different options on them. It's pretty endless what we can do in the reports. You can click a report, and there's a kind of that balance between dashboard and reports. If you want to see more than one thing, then we will tend to say that that's a dashboard that we'll set up for you. But if you want to be able to incorporate a tabular view along with a chart of just one same set of data, kind of like having a drill down but seeing it all at once, we have those, and we also have custom filters on reports where you predefine the filter, and there's just filter buttons at the top where you select something that says like only my clients. You don't have to type in anything. You click that button, and it automatically filters it for you. We can do all kinds of things like that. Basically, we just do like a discovery session and then show you some examples of what we could put together. And to answer the PDF question, the reason why, yes, we do PDFs selectively. Basically, sometimes it doesn't look good. We have a WYSIWYG PDF creator, and what we've noticed is like a lot of our users now expect it to do more than WYSIWYG editors can provide. The best way, I would say, that you always get what you want is to view the table that you want, the report that you want. You open it in Excel, and then you can format it however way you want, and then you can see how that will look when you want to print it as a PDF. You can go Excel to PDF right away, or even if you have LibreOffice. But our WYSIWYG editor doesn't always it's not always going to give you the best format. So, sometimes if your table has way too many columns on there, it's going to look really bad in a PDF using our WYSIWYG editor, and we would suggest not to include it. But yeah, that is something we can just basically turn on and off. A couple more questions here. Can reports include nested data tables, inline drill down? I'm really excited to have a lot of these questions are coming from the same person, so I'm really excited to have more another conversation with you about your data and your data needs, because it sounds like you have an understanding, you have a pretty good understanding of just data in general, and maybe you've used other systems. So to answer your question, yes, we can definitely do the nested thing where I wish I had that example here, but basically you have if you have related information on a record, you would have a plus sign right here on this person. So this is that one record I created. I would click that plus sign, everything would be pushed down, and I would see another card of information inside of there of all those additional records or whatever information that is. We have done that before for one of our other clients, and I'd love to show you that. Can reports include nested? Can you snapshot reports? I'm not sure if I understand that. Probably, the downloading. Oh, I see. You probably want to say freeze the data in time. Right, because the data on these reports is always updated based on any new information that's put in. The way you could snapshot it, there's no snapshot, there's no direct way to snapshot it, but you could just add filters based on the date that data is submitted. So if you only want to see stuff that was submitted in October, for instance, you use date created. There's a created date on everything that's submitted. So that's across all of the data entry forms, always recording who submitted, when they submitted it, when it was edited, and by who. So you could just do a filter on October, created dates. So once you're done with October, that report would never change. People can't go back to October and add more data. So there, in a sense, there's an indirect way to snapshot reports. Additionally, you can just download them, and hopefully we keep all your data in the system, but you can also download them and email them if that's what you're talking about. Can you print dashboard charts? So I did kind of mention this earlier. There's, this is a feature that's used all the time. I can just click this picture button, download as picture, and it opened on a different screen, of course. So it shows me that exact report the way I had it. So if I went in and kind of drilled down, or if there was a legend like this one has, there's a legend and I want to turn certain things off and then download the report, it's going to show me exactly like it is there. It's almost as if you opened up your little snippet tool. If you're using Windows, they have this little snippet tool, and you can just click new and take a screenshot of the chart, and that basically just does that for you. It screenshots that chart, and then you can email it, you can PDF it, you can save it as a PDF, or you can do all those things from there. When you download it from the system, it downloads it as a PNG. That's just an image that you can do other things with. Good, so I think hopefully I answered all the questions. If there are, I'm going to go back to, I know we went over beyond 3 o'clock. We had some very good questions, so that's always my favorite thing. Obviously, if you're asking questions, you're interested in getting those questions answered, so I don't want to rush through. If you have more questions, feel free to ask. I'm going to go back to actually I'm going to show you, the next steps. So the slide here, this is one of the last slides. Is just how to get started when I'm ready to get started. So first of all, again, I want to mention that the recording of this demo will be shared. So if you want to review any of the questions that I answered or show any of your other staff, we'll share this with you. It'll be on YouTube so you can watch it anytime. You can always ask us other questions. Connect with us at info@datasnapz.com. You can also email Nancy who emailed you the information on this webinar. You can email her any questions, and she'll make sure to get your questions answered. And when you're ready to get started, I'm going to show you our website. Most of the people here, I think, had to find us from our website. So when you're ready to get started, I just want to scroll down. There's a How It Works page, and this kind of gives you an overview. I'm going to click More Details. And this is just to explain again what I was talking about with the professional setup. It's a three, at a highest level, there's 3 steps on how we set up your accounts. Step 1 is to sign up for you click this button, say I'm ready to get started, and there's just a form that we contact you. We're not going to contact you otherwise, but that means that you're ready to start. You're not obligated yet, but what we'll do is we'll go through the first initial stages of the professional setup. Once the professional setup is over, we set up your account and you get access to it, and you have, it's just a monthly, it's a monthly subscription you pay to keep your account up, and then if you have additional things that you want to add down the road, we just do that. We do you work with our IT team. We basically assign a couple team members to you. So if any questions, you can contact them directly, and then that's the support and beyond. We continue to house your data and keep it secure, safe, encrypted, and any changes that you have, you go through us. Especially if you are looking, we set up your account and we set up someone else's account, and then now, like I said before, we incorporate feedback that make the system in general better. So if there's like a feature that comes up that all of our users would get, this happens periodically, like the add new forms. We're hoping to be able to allow users to add their own forms in a very easy, intuitive way, and add their own charts in a very easy, intuitive way. And when that happens, you just get it automatically. It's not something that you have to pay for. So further down, this is kind of a timeline of how it works. There's no obligations for the first information session. So we kind of go through and understand your needs and your data and how you collect it and how you would need DataSnapz to be useful, how it would need to work to be useful. And then we set up your account, and during this, the setup of your account, that's when you've signed the contract and you're involved in the setup. We show you demos of it as it's progressing to make sure it's progressing in the right way. And then you can kind of read through here. But when you are ready to get started, this is where you want to go. You can just email us. Or you can click on our website. You can click through on our website. So an email is right here, info@datasnapz.com, and then the link to that, a link to this webinar will be shared with everyone in about a day or so. So that concludes. Thank you all so much for coming today. Great questions again. If you have any additional follow-up questions or anything I didn't answer clearly, just go ahead and email me. And I can set up a conversation, or we can set up a call, or I can try and answer them through email. And I'm just going to kind of stay on the line for the next couple of minutes to see if there's any other questions. Someone said, "Thanks, very informative. I'm glad you asked some great questions. I'm glad you found it. I'm glad you found that I answered those questions." Sometimes it's hard to understand. Because I'm trying to move so fast. Again, I'm just going to be sitting around, so if you don't have any other questions, or if you're still thinking of questions, that's fine. I'll be here for the next few minutes before I shut it down. If no one answers questions, I will let you know before I leave. You are very welcome. If anything comes up, if you have any other questions down the road, again, I'm sure it's going to come up as you you process some of the information I've shown you here. One of the things that we are, we try and stress is, that really sets us apart from competition. There's a lot of other database tools out there, but none of them are a hybrid between the tools where they're customized to your needs, but also are based on a platform. So when you base it on a platform the way we have, it follows a certain kind of a cookie cutter thing, but allows a lot of flexibility so different types of organizations can fit into that process and still be very cost efficient. Whereas if you go and work with, we used to do this actually, we still do custom development if you really need it. But the custom development is you're building something from scratch. It's always going to cost more than fitting into another application. And we've made this very flexible to allow for a lot of different scenarios. Whereas if you wanted to work with another competitor that allows you to create it yourself, you have to have the know-how and the time to maintain it and the comprehension of their system. So usually that learning curve takes a lot more time. And you can create something that you don't realize a year down the road might have not been what you actually needed. Just something to think about. You're very welcome. It looks like most people have popped out of the meeting, all but one or two. So I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.